If we're going to talk about money launderers in chief, we need to discuss those stores at the shopping mall that never have anyone in them. They never have anyone in them. The products are not even that expensive. Even the e-commerce traffic is not even that strong. Like, it would have been better if, there's no one in the store, but up and down it's guys from Aramex, guys from Take a Lot, who are just up and down collecting items to go deliver. There's not even any of that. The store never has anyone inside. In fact, the people that work at the store get so excited when you come in because they are longing human interactions. Yet that store will survive. It will survive longer than most retail chain stores. And it's not like they're even selling expensive things. It would be justifiable if they are selling expensive things and you say, man, they need 3, 4, 5 customers in a day in order to maintain. It's not even expensive. It's biltong. It's suitcases. It's phone covers. Yet they survive. A Foschini will leave that store. An Edgar's will leave that mall. They survive. A Steers will leave that mall. They survive. But there's never anyone in there. Now those are money launderers in chief.
Money laundering, as the word says, it's the dirty money that needs to be laundered, meaning that needs to be sent and cleaned, sent into the laundry. It is cleaned, and then by the time it gets out, it is clean money. So it's a criminal money, dirty money, gets into the laundry, it is washed, and then it gets out clean. Now there are three main steps in this process of money laundering. So it's the dirty money, but the dirty money must be used, or it must get into the banking system. That's a laundry, right? So the first step of money laundering is the placement. Take note, placement. So the dirty money or the criminal money is placed within the banking system through a legitimate business. I'll come back and talk about legitimate businesses. It gets into that legitimate business, which it can be property. Now you understand why I'm using that video. And other things. So it can be property. So the dirty money buys the properties. Then it gets into the banking system. Once it gets into the banking system, then the person sells the properties. Then that money is clean.
Churches and money laundering. You asked for it. It's finally here. How do some churches launder money? The leadership of the church, whether it's the pastor himself or the whole leadership team, will form an unsavory relationship with the Sigebenga. Then there will be calls for tithes and offerings and pledges, obviously. These are overhyped. The reason why these are overhyped is so that the excitement for these tithes and offerings can match the inflated amounts that are going to come in from the Sigebengas, right? Once the church, the congregation has given the pledges, tithes and offering, the money from the Sigebenga will then be mixed in to that amount and it will be banked together. The church will then take its cut of the Sigebenga money and wire the money back to the Sigebenga. How does it do this? Through a donation to the Sigebenga's registered NGO, or through a payment to the Sigebenga's business account for a service rendered, whether it's gardening, whether it's whatever it is, but for a certain supply of a certain item, right? And that's by wiring it back to the Sigebenga in that format, then the money is clean. So it comes in as an offering, and then it comes out as clean money for payment of supplies. Now,
the second stage, I said that's placement. The second stage of money laundering is now the layering or the smurfing. The layering involves that money now is inside the banking system. There are no questions about it. Now that money is transferred in small transactions to different entities. But those entities belong to one individual or one group. That's the group that collected the dirty money. Let's say it's the drug money, buy property, then they make profit from that property, then it is transferred. So the layering is those small transactions. You buy something with that money from the property, small transactions. So that's the layering. And then the next stage of this now is the integration. Now the money has been placed into a legitimate business, and then there were these small transactions which now they disguise, because the banks will question why so much amount that is withdrawn. So it must be small amounts. Now the money gets into the stage of integration, because those small transactions, they are paid to legitimate businesses. That's integration.
Now, things you should know and what makes this possible. Let's talk about tithes. Tithes come in usually in envelopes. Yes, some people wire them, but they usually come in envelope. The church has no way of verifying if indeed the person offered or pledged as per the envelope. You may as well have not offered anything, but there will be an envelope with your name and with money in it that comes from I don't know where. The church also does not know who earns what and how, right? So they have no way of asking. Also, the church will also not announce who tithes and how much, right? They just take the money and put it in an envelope and bank it and appreciate you and appreciate all the people together, right? You can also tithe anonymously, and these little loopholes is where the skebenga money can come in, because you can tithe with an envelope that you wrote nothing on, just put in your money and give it in, right? So that's a loophole. Especially with pledges, because pledges are large sums of money. They are big amounts, and because they are big amounts, they then then the high amount of money that will come from the skebenga is justifiable, because we expect that type of money from a pledge. You know what I mean? And you can also pledge anonymously.
Hello, what do you remember? The money from Cat to Osizweni Butchery. Now, does that connect? Osizweni Butchery is a legitimate business which can bank their money. Got that? So that's the 3 stages. The placement is placed into the banking system, then the layering, so that 300,000 allegedly from Cat Matlala will be spent in small amounts. Could be given to Brigadier Macheng in small amounts, or paid to other businesses to say, no, this one gave us a cow, so we pay him or her 16,000. Yet it's a 300,000, but it's spent in small amounts so that no one... See, it disguises for those who are investigating and analysts. They could not pick up. This is why now the state agencies or crime-fighting agencies must be aware of these stages. The layering and then the integration into the banking system. Now, one can go and withdraw. Got that? But it didn't come through cash. You got it. The 300,000 into the Osizweni. I'm not saying that's the case, but I'm using that as an example. Allegedly, Osizweni gets in, and then you pay someone for a cow or pay someone for a gas. Those are small transactions that will not raise any suspicions. But then the person who wants the money will go on the other side and collect their money.
How can you tell, though? What are the telltale signs? If most congregants are poor and the church building and infrastructure are really fancy, something is wrong. Usually the fanciness of the church should match the lifestyle of the average congregant, right? So if there's that gap, something is wrong. Because if the church should be fancy, the money to make the church fancy comes from these people. If they're poor, what's going on, right? Secondly, if most congregants are poor and the pastor has a very flashy lifestyle and has no other form of income, something is funny. Thirdly, if the pastor boasts about the relationships he has with rich people and businessmen, that's usually a telltale sign. And boasts also about the amount of money they give him directly as gifts and donations, something is wrong. And this doesn't mean that when these things happen, there's money laundering, but there are usually telltale signs, especially if the pastor has relationships with sketchy people or rich people and something like that, then something is very wrong.